Hello, I'm Elise Vance, the author of the channel Borrowed Lives, and I offer you fascinating stories. Like and subscribe to my channel.
After our final residency exams, someone spiked my drink at a rooftop celebration. My childhood crush, Marcus, appeared right as my vision began to blur. Just as I was about to yield to his touch, glowing lines of my own handwriting materialized in the air before me. A surge of profound regret hit me. Why would I ever choose to sleep with Marcus? How could I have been so blind? As I stared, the ghostly journal scrolled forward. Marcus was deliberately compromising me to block Julian, the lead surgeon at our hospital, from confessing his love to me. Also, Marcus could secure his own future with Serena. Because of Marcus, I gave up a prestigious chief surgical fellowship in Chicago, stayed in our small-town clinic to marry him, and endured years of quiet neglect, only to discover on my deathbed that he had always been obsessed with Serena. When Serena's adult son needed hundreds of thousands of dollars for a lavish venture, Marcus casually cut off my critical cancer treatment funds with a hollow apology. But what use is an apology to a dying woman? I froze, tears scalding my cheeks as I read the final entry. Elena, if you ever find yourself back 10 years ago on the night of the exam, please, I beg you, push Marcus away. It was unmistakable, my distinct cursive, my exact journal style. This was written by my future self, 10 years down the line. Only then did the agonizing truth hit me. The future me who married Marcus suffered an utter nightmare, while the man who had pursued me for a decade was simply using me as a pawn for Serena. Elena. Marcus's heavy breathing broke through my thoughts. What's wrong? I snapped my eyes open to find his face inches from mine. My pulse hammered violently. He was drop-dead gorgeous. I had harbored a secret crush on him for 10 years, and I never imagined we'd ever be this close. Seeing me paralyzed, he slid a warm hand onto my waist. Elena, I know you orchestrated this tonight, but it's fine. I don't mind. If you stay here with me tonight, I'll take full responsibility for you. Hearing his hypocritical promise, I looked up at the shimmering text hovering in the air. Elena, do you want to start over? If you rewrite this night, will your future shine? Tears spilled down my cheeks. Gathering every ounce of strength in my body, I violently shoved Marcus backward. No. Marcus stumbled against the table, his eyes widening in shock. What? I glared at him, the phantom entries burning in my mind. 10 years, a decade of agonizing sacrifice just to get a meaningless sorry on my deathbed? Why me? A wave of intense nausea hit me. I pushed past him, bolted into the adjoining bathroom, and slammed the lock into place. Why me? Elena. Marcus snapped out of his stupor and pounded on the wooden door. What on earth are you doing? Open up. You invited me up to this suite. Are you playing mind games with me now? I ignored his yelling, stepped into the stall, and turned the cold shower on, letting freezing water drench my face and hair. The icy shock cleared the fog from my mind instantly. Outside, Marcus's voice grew harsh and agitated. Elena, if you don't open this door right now, I'm kicking it down. Do you seriously think playing hard to get is going to make me want you more? You. Before he could finish his threat, I wiped the water from my eyes and threw the door open. Marcus was standing there with his smartphone in hand, his thumbs flying across the screen. I caught a split-second glimpse. It was a chat with Serena. Everything clicked into place instantly. Panicking for a fraction of a second, he slammed his screen down. Don't misunderstand. I was just worried you'd do something stupid, so I was asking Serena to come help. Elena, do you want this or not? Without answering, I stepped right past him toward the hallway door. He froze, then lunged forward and grabbed my wrist tightly. What is your problem, Elena? Why are you suddenly acting so pure and innocent? You called me to save you, dressed like this. Weren't you trying to seduce me? You've been following me around like a helpless puppy for years. Now that I'm actually being generous enough to give you a chance, you're throwing a hysterical fit. He wasn't lying. I had been foolishly devoted to him for a decade. But I was done. I looked him dead in the eye and took a deep, steadying breath. Marcus, starting right now, I don't care about you anymore. What? He went stock-still, total disbelief written across his features. Before he could process my words, I grabbed my coat and bag and walked out without looking back once. In the elevator, I pulled out my phone, logged into the medical board portal, and withdrew my application for the local clinic network. Seconds later, I dialed the director of surgical medicine at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. "Hello, Dr. Vance? This is Dr. Elena Vance. I would like to formally accept the Chief Surgical Fellowship offer." Recalling how I had once planned to reject the position just to stay near Marcus, I felt sickened by my past stupidity. As I exited the building into the cool night air, a familiar voice called out to me. "Elena." I looked up. It was Dr. Julian Miller, the senior trauma surgeon. Serena was standing right beside him, a smug, satisfied smirk playing on her lips. Serena immediately tightened her grip on Julian's arm. "Julian, see? I didn't lie to you. I told you I saw her book this private hotel suite herself. It's barely been 2 hours since our exams ended and she couldn't wait. Now that you've seen what kind of person she really is, you should finally give up on her." Julian didn't hesitate. He pulled his arm free from Serena's grip and stepped rapidly toward me. "Elena, are you all right?" I looked at him, my head still spinning. There hadn't been many details about him in the glowing text, but I knew he was the heir to the prestigious Miller Healthcare Syndicate. I also knew Marcus had deliberately touched me tonight to destroy Julian's feelings for me, all to secure his own relationship with Serena without interference. Before I could process it further, Serena raised her voice, pointing an accusing finger at me. "Elena, I know you've been chasing Marcus for years, but aren't you being completely shameless? The moment our exams finish, you run off to a hotel suite to sleep with him. You know Julian." I took a sharp breath, turned around, and looked Serena dead in the eye. The version of me in another timeline who had suffered 30 years of agony wasn't in this state because of Serena's petty scheme. I offered a cold smile, stepped forward, and landed a harsh slap across her face. "Serena, nothing happened tonight. If you dare spread another lie about me, I will destroy you." Almost simultaneously, a shadow rushed out from the lobby doors. "Elena, are you insane?" It was Marcus. He had sprinted after me, and he immediately threw himself in front of Serena, turning to yell at me with pure rage. "Elena, what did Serena say that wasn't true? You're the one acting like a disgraced mess. You spiked your own drink just to get me into your bed. Apologize to Serena right now." The air in the courtyard instantly turned to ice. "What did you just say?" Julian was the first to react, forcefully shoving Marcus backward. "Elena said nothing happened, so nothing happened. Who do you think you are, telling her to apologize?" Seeing Julian defend me so fiercely, Serena bit her lip and let tears fill her eyes. "Julian, why don't you believe me? Look at her, her clothes are soaked. It's obvious she just—" "Julian, I would never lie to you," Marcus interjected, his voice softening the moment he noticed Serena crying. He turned back around and reached out to grab my arm. "Elena, stop throwing this embarrassing drama. I already said I'd take responsibility for tonight. Stay here in town, work at the local hospital with me, and we'll get married after our residency. I promise." He spoke with such fake passion. The old me would have felt her heart skip a beat and agreed instantly. But all I could see were those phantom words floating in my memory. I stayed in our hometown for him, endured 2 high-risk pregnancies, and lost both children. He comforted me, saying it didn't matter as long as I was safe. I believed his tears until I was dying, when he finally confessed he intentionally sabotaged my pregnancies because he never wanted any woman other than Serena to bear his children. He said giving me his last name was the biggest compromise he could ever make. Between those future lines, I had felt the unbearable weight of my future self's despair. The sheer grief of it almost knocked the wind out of me. Julian caught me by the shoulder, keeping me upright. "Elena, it's okay. I believe you." Marcus's forehead creased with fury as he tried to yank me out of Julian's grasp. "Are you out of your mind? Elena belongs to me. What we do is none of your business." He then pointed angrily at Serena. "Julian, Serena has loved you for years. Why can't you just look at her for once?" I let out a bitter laugh. It all came back to his pathetic fear that I would ruin things for Serena. I took a deep breath and violently jerked my arm out of Marcus's grip. "Marcus, we are nothing to each other. Touch me again, and I'm calling the police. Marcus froze, staring at me as if trying to process a foreign language. Elena, what did you just say? What is wrong with you tonight? You've spent 10 years saying you'd only ever marry me. How can you say that? Didn't you hear her? Julian stepped forward, completely blocking Marcus. Get out of here. Julian turned, slipped his heavy coat off, and draped it over my wet shoulders. Come on. I'll take you home. I hesitated for a moment, then shook my head. I can get home myself. I'll return your coat in a couple of days. Without another word, I turned on my heel and walked away. Whether in the past, present, or future, I was completely done dealing with any of them. When I stepped through the front door of my family's house, my mother took one look at me and rushed over. Elena, what on earth happened to you? You're drenched. Looking at her worried face, a line from the future journal flashed through my mind. For Marcus, I cut off all contact with my parents for 10 years. The memory burned like acid. I forced a gentle smile. It's nothing, Mom. Just a street sweeper truck that sprayed water near the sidewalk. I'm going to take a hot shower. Mom handed me a dry towel, her eyes filled with maternal warmth. Go, hurry. Don't catch pneumonia. After showering, my phone chimed on the nightstand. It was a voice message from Julian. Elena, I just submitted my acceptance for the Chief Surgical Fellowship at Johns Hopkins. I hope we can be colleagues there. I stared at the screen, stunned. Julian had applied to Johns Hopkins too. No wonder Marcus had tried every manipulative trick in the book to keep me stuck at the local clinic. He was terrified that Julian and I would connect in Baltimore, leaving Serena completely out of Julian's sight. I put my phone down without replying. The next morning, I arrived at the medical center auditorium for our official graduation ceremony. The moment I crossed the threshold, groups of residents and doctors began whispering and pointing at me. Is that her? The one from the regional hospital group chat. My stomach plummeted. I pulled out my phone, opened the app, and saw an anonymous profile had joined the hospital network overnight. They had uploaded a high-resolution video file, and the thumbnail was unmistakably me, sprawled on the hotel bed, clothes rumpled, reaching up out of haze toward the man standing over me. I closed the app immediately, my pulse racing, and looked around the hallway. Seeing my reaction, several colleagues snickered aloud. Isn't that Dr. Vance? She always acted so professional and distant, but look at what she's like behind closed doors. Honestly, her body is insane. Who knew she was hiding all that under her scrubs? Who's the guy anyway? Who else? Dr. Marcus, obviously. Everyone knows she's been obsessed with him since high school. Who else would she put on a show like that for? Crazy in bed, and now she's pretending to be embarrassed. Hilarious. I was trembling with rage. I immediately dialed the emergency police line. Right then, Serena's sweet, venomous voice drifted from behind me. Marcus, go on, tell everyone. How is Elena's body? Before I could even turn around, I heard Marcus let out a dry, arrogant laugh. It's decent, but honestly, if she hadn't practically begged me and thrown herself at me, I wouldn't have even laid a finger on her. More laughter erupted from the surrounding crowd of medical residents. Now that Dr. Vance's reputation is completely trashed like this, who else would take her besides you? Haha, finally Dr. Miller, that clueless fool, will see her true colors and actually give Serena a chance. Man, Marcus really goes all out for Serena. He actually agreed to sleep with Elena just to help Serena out. I found the sheer absurdity of it sickening. Marcus had orchestrated all of this just to secure Serena's happiness. Then Marcus's tone suddenly grew stern. All right, cut it out. A joke is a joke. I'm going to end up marrying Elena eventually, so when you see her around the wards, remember to act nice. Keeping her tied to me is the only way to guarantee Julian stays completely devoted to Serena. I was so consumed by rage that a bitter laugh escaped my lips. I spun around and stared directly at him. Marcus, you're utterly disgusting. He froze mid-sentence, his eyes widening in panic as he grabbed my wrist tightly. You heard that? Seeing my cold silence, his expression hardened into an annoyed frown. Look, you don't even care about Julian anyway, so why can't you just help Serena out and stop making a massive scene? I already checked the residency allocation portal. You didn't select Johns Hopkins, which means you're staying here at the local clinic with me, right? If you keep acting like a dramatic child, I might just decide not to bother with you at all. Serena stepped up beside him, looking down at me with pure disdain. Aren't you Marcus's loyal little lapdog? You finally got what you wanted, so why aren't you celebrating? Before the words had even left her mouth, a heavy thud echoed across the hallway. I turned to see Julian, who had just stepped into the corridor, landing a powerful right hook straight across Marcus's jaw. You uploaded that video, didn't you? Julian demanded, his voice dangerously low. Serena hadn't anticipated him appearing out of nowhere and frantically threw herself toward him. Julian, you've completely misunderstood. Did you know she went to that hotel suite while under the influence of something? Serena stopped mid-sentence. That single moment of hesitation, 3 full seconds. 3 seconds was all Julian needed to read the room. So that's what happened, Julian said quietly, stepping back to disengage from her entirely. The surrounding crowd of doctors and residents went dead silent. It wasn't the eager, gossip-hungry silence from moments before. It was the tense, suffocating quiet of people realizing a major boundary had just been crossed. I looked at Marcus, clutching his face, then at Serena. Both of them had spent the morning utterly convinced that this video would strip me of my dignity and leave me with nothing. The look of rising panic on Marcus's face was the very first crack in their delusional certainty. I raised my voice just loud enough for the entire hallway to hear. I called the precinct before I walked into the building this morning. The crowd shifted uneasily. The file posted to the hospital network is not medical gossip. It is recorded evidence of a crime. I glanced down at the phone still held in several residents' hands. You laughed because you thought my career was over. You forgot that distributing non-consensual media makes you an accomplice under federal law. A senior resident in the back opened his mouth to object, then promptly shut it. A surgical intern near the wall quietly slid her phone into her coat pocket. Deleting it is tampering with evidence, I added calmly. Don't bother. Lead investigator Detective Sarah Vance arrived 20 minutes later. She entered with 2 officers, spoke briefly with Chief Dean Sterling at the main security desk, and walked into the medical center with the sharp efficiency of someone who had done this 100 times and had zero tolerance for drama. Marcus saw the uniform and his posture instantly shifted, not quite looking guilty enough to confess, but far too defensive to look innocent. Detective Vance addressed the staff gathered near the lobby. She instructed anyone who had accessed, forwarded, or saved the video to turn their mobile devices over for digital forensic verification immediately, reminding everyone that obstructing a police investigation carried severe criminal penalties. I watched 22 medical professionals instantly realize that their careers were far more fragile than they had assumed. Chief Dean Sterling looked at me with the weary expression of an administrator who had expected a quiet graduation day. I didn't feel an ounce of sympathy for him. Julian found me near the quiet corridor of the administration wing. Elena, do you need anything right now? Not, I'll fix this, not, let me handle it. Just, do you need anything? I need the IP address and media metadata traced, I said firmly. The network user was an unassigned guest account. There will be device identifiers. I need my legal counsel connected with the cyber forensics unit. I can set that up immediately through our family's legal network, Julian replied with a firm nod. I already retained an attorney, I said. He nodded once, accepting it without ego. I had contacted defense attorney Eleanor Vance early that morning before leaving the house, before stepping into the hospital, before any of this erupted. I had done it after cold water, a clear head, and hours of reviewing the future journal. The future had already shown me the ruin that awaited if I remained passive. I returned home that afternoon and sat at the kitchen table. My mother stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching my face in silence, before sitting down across from me. I told her everything, not about the floating journal, but enough. What had happened at the hotel suite, the video they posted, what Marcus had confessed about using me to keep Julian away from Serena, the legal steps I had taken, and the active police investigation. She didn't blame me for a single second. She cried quietly for a moment, then stood up to get my father. I heard them talking in the hallway, his voice dropping into a low, flat tone, the specific stillness of a parent realizing what kind of stand he needs to take. He came into the kitchen, sat beside me, and said, "Tell me everything Attorney Eleanor Vance needs." Marcus's parents arrived at our house the following evening. His father tried to talk around the severity of it, calling it a youthful mistake, mentioning our family's history, pointing out Marcus's bright medical career. He said they were willing to compensate us generously to handle it privately. My father let him finish speaking entirely. Then he asked, "And what did your son plan to do with my daughter's future?" The room fell dead silent. Marcus, who had come along and was standing nervously by the entryway, looked at me directly for the first time since the hotel room. I remained silent, staring at the legal folder on the table. Marcus's father insisted their settlement offer stood. My father replied that no amount of money could replace a criminal indictment and escorted them to the door. Marcus tried to linger behind. He looked at me, his voice shaking. "Elena, we can fix this. There's still time. I can explain everything to the board. I never meant for it to go this far. You do not get to destroy my reputation and call it responsibility," I said coldly. He reached for my hand, but my father stepped back into the hallway. Marcus turned and left. The hospital disciplinary board hearing took place a week later. Marcus arrived with his parents and their corporate defense lawyer, wearing a carefully rehearsed expression, calm, bewildered, unfairly targeted. Serena arrived separately. She had clearly been crying in the parking lot, her makeup subtly smudged. Chief Dean Sterling opened the proceedings by reading the hospital's strict policies regarding non-consensual media, professional misconduct, and full cooperation with law enforcement. Marcus's attorney immediately started presenting a defense, but Attorney Eleanor Vance cut him off by sliding digital forensic logs across the desk. The guest profile used to post the video had been created on a smartphone registered to an alt email address. That address had been set to auto-forward to one of Serena's accounts 3 months prior. Furthermore, the logs showed the profile was active at the exact timestamps as private messages Serena had sent to Marcus. And the messages sent between Marcus and Serena that night before, during, and after the incident had been preserved via cloud auto backup because Serena had left automatic cloud synchronization enabled. "Tell him Julian is on his way up. He needs to move now. Is it done? Julian will see it tomorrow morning. Make sure it gets posted to the internal network." Serena's mother, sitting right beside her, read the printout and went entirely pale. Marcus's lawyer attempted to argue that digital logs didn't definitively prove who typed the messages. Attorney Vance replied that the hospital hearing didn't need to meet the standard of a criminal conviction. It only needed to determine whether ethical standards were breached and whether the medical institution remained a safe environment. Chief Dean Sterling announced that Marcus was suspended effective immediately, stripped of his medical honors, and referred to the district attorney's office. Serena received an identical suspension and was placed under formal review for permanent expulsion from the medical residency program due to premeditated harassment using institutional networks. Marcus turned to stare at Serena in utter shock. Serena had already turned away toward her mother, who was staring blankly at the table. The hospital gossip reversed direction within 24 hours. The same medical residents who had shared jokes days earlier now walked the corridors in silence. Several deleted their internal accounts. Some had already been interviewed by Detective Vance's team and were terrified, finally realizing that what they treated as entertainment carried severe legal weight. One intern approached me near the staff lounge to apologize for her comments. I told her, "Apologize by telling the exact truth when the prosecutor asks what you saw." She nodded quickly and walked away. I wasn't interested in her guilt. I was interested in clearing my name. Serena intercepted me outside the administration office 2 days later. She had clearly been waiting. She claimed she never intended for things to escalate this far, that Marcus had told her it would only humiliate me enough to make me step back, not destroy my career. She wept, saying she only wanted Julian to stop paying attention to me. I listened quietly until she finished, then said, "You tried to turn the worst night of my life into your love story." She broke down completely, pleading that she had loved Julian for years and that it wasn't fair he only looked at me. "You don't get to use me as a tool to get his attention," I replied. She reached out and grabbed my arm, begging, saying she would tell the police it was all Marcus's idea, that she had only followed his lead and didn't realize how impaired I was by whatever was in my drink. She froze the moment she realized what she had just admitted to. I didn't say a word, but my phone, which had been recording for nearly 3 minutes, had captured every word. I forwarded the audio file to Attorney Vance before I even stepped out of the building. The criminal investigation expanded rapidly. Hotel security records confirmed that I had been on the premises for less than 40 minutes. A staff member on duty that night noted in his log that I appeared visibly disoriented and had asked for directions to the same hall twice, noting that a man, Marcus, was escorting me. The cloud backups recovered from Serena's accounts explicitly referenced a substance being added to my drink at the event. The text messages explicitly detailed their plan for Marcus to arrive before the effects wore off. Serena had arranged it all. With this new evidence, the district attorney added serious felony charges. The legal proceedings were meticulous and thorough. Serena's recorded confession about spiking my drink solidified the prosecution's case. For months later, the judge delivered the final sentences in a quiet courtroom. Marcus was sentenced to 6 years in state prison. The judge highlighted his premeditated exploitation of my trust and his role in distributing non-consensual media for social manipulation. Serena was sentenced to 5 years, with the judge noting her direct role in orchestrating the drugging, planning the media distribution, and attempting to mislead investigators. Both were ordered to pay restitution, received permanent restraining orders, and had their medical licenses permanently revoked. Serena looked toward Julian, who sat 3 rows back in the gallery, but he didn't return her gaze. Marcus stared at me, but I was focused on the folded letter from Johns Hopkins in my coat pocket. Marcus later sent a letter through his attorney, claiming he was remorseful, blaming Serena for manipulating him, and asking me to remember the good years of our past. I read it once, then placed it in a storage box beside the notes of my past. The phantom journal lines in my mind had rewritten themselves completely. "I stayed in our hometown for him" was replaced with "I left before the town could hold me back." He comforted me while sabotaging my life became "he begged for mercy from a judge, but justice prevailed." "I cut off my parents for 10 years" became "I called home every Sunday, and they always answered." And the line "what good is an apology when I'm already dying?" simply faded away, leaving the page completely blank. I moved to Baltimore that autumn. Johns Hopkins was cold, vast, and demanding, but it was a fresh start. Julian had arrived a week before me for his program orientation, settling into an apartment just a block from mine. Our connection grew naturally, not through dramatic gestures, but through shared shifts, quiet dinners, and late-night study sessions in the hospital library. He never tried to play the hero. He simply stood by my side as an equal. One evening in late autumn, while walking back from the clinic, he looked at me and said, "I'm not going anywhere, Elena. Take all the time you need." I laughed, a genuine, light-hearted laugh that I hadn't felt in years. Months later, during spring, one final line appeared in my memory from that future self. "Elena, if you ever find yourself back 10 years ago, please push Marcus away." And right beneath it, in lighter, peaceful script, "You already did." I closed that chapter of my life for good. Outside my office window, the campus trees were in full bloom. I had done far more than just push Marcus away. I had reclaimed my life, built my own future, and left him to face the exact consequences he tried to trap me in. Julian knocked gently on my office door, holding up 2 hot coffees with a smile. I smiled back and opened the door. "Leave a comment telling me, did they get what they deserved, or should the retribution have been even harsher?" If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more dramatic stories and intense revenge tales.